The Tom Woods Show, episode 2015.
Prepare to set fire to the index card of allowable opinion. Your daily dose of liberty education starts here. The Tom Woods Show.
Hey everybody, Tom Woods here, joined today by Tom Mullen, whom I've known for quite a while in this liberty movement. We haven't spoken in a while, but he has a brand new book I want to talk to him about. Short book you can read quickly, but full of insights and interesting points that I endorse fully. And it's an anti-state Christmas. I'm linking to it at tomwoods.com/2015. Tom, welcome back.
Thanks, Tom. Great to be here.
You have a lot of different things in here, and I am as annoyed as you are by A Christmas Carol and It's a Wonderful Life. And now normally, let me just say something in defense of myself here. Normally, I can shut off the inner libertarian while I'm watching a movie or reading a book or whatever. I can do that. I am capable of that. I'm capable of interacting with other human beings without constantly reminding them of the non-aggression principle. Yes. However, there are some things I find so irritating that it's just impossible for me to do that. And so you actually inadvertently touched on two of them, as a matter of fact. But before we get to those, I want to add one more item that we could also think about in terms of an anti-statist or Christmas. And that has to do with, now I don't offhand, I'm sorry, I could look them up, but I've seen economists, mainstream so-called economists, argue that Christmas is inefficient. It's inefficient because if you had $20 to go spend, you probably wouldn't spend it on the $20 gift that some person gave you. So you see, this is inefficient. Now, I consider this to be so ridiculous and anti-human as almost not to be worth replying to. But have you ever heard the Christmas is inefficient line?
I haven't heard it, but it's got to be from the economists and the same group of people who think that all there is to life is to just keep on breathing and not
same
catch
people.
a virus, right?
Yeah, yes, it must be the same people. Because, of course, we also get a certain unquantifiable pleasure from giving a gift and receiving a gift that is not contained in the price. You know, you can't calculate that. These are all subjective feelings. You know, so for all you know, it's super duper efficient. So ridiculous, inane. But I just want you to know that no matter how many inanities you cover and refute in one book, there is always another inanity out there.
Well,
okay,
good. At least I'll have something else to write about.
Yeah, it keeps you in business. That's the way I look at it. You know, if I can't defeat the crazy people, they at least keep me employed. All right. So, again, each chapter, in a way, can be read, I think, independently of every other one in this book. So it makes it you know what it reminds me of is my book, 33 Questions About American History. People told me it was a great bathroom book because they could read one little chapter that was like independent of all the others and then leave and then come back to it and not feel like they couldn't remember where they were. And I think your book is kind of the same way. But would you say there's a general thrust to it?
Yeah, I think the general thrust is that no matter how you look at Christmas and whether you happen to be a Christian or not, or believe Jesus was a divine being or a great teacher or whatever, that I guess what everybody would like us to think is that especially maybe a Christian should just kind of suffer in silence with all this COVID craziness and turn the other cheek or whatever cliche you want to throw out. And that's what Jesus would want you to do, or that's what your pastor, you know, your liberal pastor
be as wimpy as possible, and then you'll be Christ-like.
Right. And you know, the Jesus we find in the New Testament is no such thing. In fact, he's quite libertarian in the respect that he not only excoriates what would stand for the Jewish government under Roman rule at the time, but he openly flouts regulations that really don't have any use, or they're unnecessary, or you know they kind of contradict the idea of the Bible. So he's very libertarian in that respect, and he seems to be pro-capitalist because at least half of his parables feature heroes that are capitalists and property owners, often representing God himself.
I like all this material because I do think that the Christ that people like Nietzsche were arguing against is this kind of sentimental, inoffensive Christ. And I don't think that's the real one. I mean, I don't think that kind of Christ gives you a Charlemagne or half of the other people we associate with Western civilization. I want to talk about something a little more frivolous, if you don't mind. If we could fast forward a little bit to something a little bit more frivolous. Everybody every year wants to watch It's a Wonderful Life. Now, everybody loves certain aspects of that movie, and it has great sentimental value to a lot of people. So we're really being party poopers to point out the problems with it. But the thing is, there are some things I can't turn off in my brain. And people saying things and thinking in ways that are going to keep them impoverished and desperate and pathetic, that makes me crazy. And blaming the wrong people for their predicament makes me crazy. And of course, the fractional reserve aspect of the thing it makes me crazy. And so I recall when I think about the movie, I think of the brief Simpsons parody, where they have the Jimmy Stewart character saying, I don't have your money here. It's in Fred's house or whatever. And then Mo says, hey, what's my money doing in your house, Fred? And he punches him in the face. I just love it. So, but I haven't seen it in forever. So the details are I was reminded of them by reading your book. But go ahead and spoil that movie for us, Tom.
Well, and first of all, a little bit of background. A lot of people probably don't know this, but Frank Capra was actually an anti-Roosevelt, anti-New Deal Republican.
I did not know that. I should have known that.
Yes, as all good and decent people should be. But he didn't mind, working with communist scriptwriters, which two communists wrote It's a Wonderful Life. And Capra didn't seem to be very interested in even directing the story away from there. So, of course, just like, The Simpsons kind of comically portray it, it begs all sorts of questions. Potter's supposed to be this evil person whose houses are run down and, he's exploiting these poor tenants. Well, where's somebody else providing a better house at a cheaper price? Why do people choose to live in them? And isn't it a little suspicious that his only competitor is the one we hear the story from about what a bad guy he is? And then at the end, during the Depression, Potter comes in and starts buying things up. And Jimmy Stewart kind of grudgingly admires him. He says, look, Potter, I can't do the Stewart like you just did, but he says, Potter's smart. He's buying right now. Everyone's got to keep their heads. Well, how can Potter buy? Why is he able to go out and acquire these resources when Stewart's got to kind of convince the yokels to not make a run on his? Well, it's because Potter has a sound investment plan and Stewart's his fractional reserve, as you mentioned. So, there's definitely another way to look at this. Of course, just like everything else, the scriptwriters leave out all kinds of details. Like, Potter obviously is a shareholder in this company, or else he wouldn't have the position he does at the beginning of the movie. So if he's a shareholder, then that means that Jimmy Stewart and his father have a fiduciary duty to run the business for maximum profit. So he gets a return on the investment he made. Of course, they never intend to do this. They have some do-gooder scheme to make everybody a homeowner on a fractional reserve plan that goes kaput as soon as there's a retraction in the money supply. So, there's a lot of questions about It's a Wonderful Life that, if answered properly, you might see it a little differently.
Yeah. Even though I want to talk about Christmas Carol in a minute, let's go back more toward the beginning of your book, because I think what you're getting at the beginning in talking about who Jesus Christ was and what his message was, the connection to Christmas should be obvious. If you're going to celebrate the coming into the world of Christ, you need to know who this person is or the God-man and what the message is, or otherwise, what are we all doing here? And so you're doing that in the form of critiquing the way some people on left and right think about him and his message. Now, you're much more, and I think most of my friends are much more, Jesus was a great libertarian than I am. I tend to shy away from that stuff just because I feel like I read the Gospels and that's not what jumps off the page at me. Like that if I'm not saying you can't make that case, and I know you're not saying that's the point of the Bible is be a libertarian, but his focus is so otherworldly. And in what you need to be doing here is focused again on priming yourself for what's to come. But at the same time, there certainly are mistakes people make that need to be corrected in talking about him. And so you have a section where you talk about socialism and the sort of casual assumption that Christ, because of what he has said about the rich and things he said about the poor, therefore he must be a welfare stater or a socialist or this and that. What's the problem with that?
Well, I don't remember any time in the Bible where, in the New Testament, where he says that we should set up a government agency and tax people to help the poor. He says you should help the poor. So, of course, you don't need a government program to help the poor. You need a government program to force somebody else to help the poor. And I don't get that out of the New Testament. And as far as the representatives of the government, such as it was, the Pharisees and the scribes, he doesn't have a very even high opinion of when they're using their own money because some of it isn't legitimately acquired. They're all proud and ostentatious about, dropping something in the collection basket. He said, no, you should keep that a secret. And to your point, he also says, my kingdom is not of this world, which, again, I'm not saying he's making a political statement, but he's certainly not saying I'm here to rule over other people. And then when you look at his parables, and I was responding specifically to the Pope, and this is quite a while ago.
Oh, I know. This is just painful. I've just stopped talking about him. I've just stopped. You're the first person who's mentioned him in months and months. Those have been very peaceful months, Tom Mullen. All right, go ahead.
Well, I want to know what New Testament he's reading, because in the one that I'm reading, and I'm no theologian, but I don't know, the state of New York says I've mastered the art of reading literature, for whatever that's worth. But the heroes in Jesus's Bible, even God himself in the parable of the vineyard is represented as the owner of the vineyard. And just for a moment, I'd like to read the way that parable starts. This is Matthew chapter 21, verse 33. Jesus says, "Hear another parable. There was a certain householder which planted a vineyard and hedged it round about and digged a winepress in it and built a tower and let it out to husbandmen and went into a far country." And then, of course, the parable goes on that he's expecting a return, and the husbandmen are not faithful to the agreement. The vineyard owner sends messengers to collect the vineyard owner's cut. The husbandmen kill the messengers. He finally sends his son. The husbandman kills the son and renege on the agreement. And then eventually the vineyard owner comes and kicks out the husbandman and replaces them. Now, yes, I know this is a symbolic story. The vineyard owner is God. The previous messengers are the prophets. And the son, of course, is Jesus. And Jesus is saying in so many words that God is going to get rid of you because you haven't, kept his word well enough. But I mean, this is not the literary tool that a socialist would use to get his point across. And that verse that I read, that's a capitalist that's turning some, otherwise useless land into a productive asset that others can have an opportunity to benefit from by adding their labor. That's the definition of a capitalist. I just don't think that's the way Jesus would tell his story if he were anti-capitalist or a socialist.
All right, fair enough. And I like arguments like that. And there's so much that can be said about it. That can be said, I mean, the parable of the talents, I think, is particularly compelling. But now let's get back to the other thing that drives me crazy. And that is, first of all, Charles Dickens in general drives me crazy. I feel like he, as whatever we might say about his literary merits, it's like everything goes over the guy's head about the way the world works. Everything goes over his head. He looks around, he sees poverty, and he blames people for poverty the way Dr. Fauci blames us for the spread of COVID. Like, what are you asking of me? Or do you not notice that every single person who ever lived was dirt poor, and that it's only recently that we could even conceive of lifting them out of poverty? There were no Charles Dickenses 1,000 years earlier, because the very thought never dawned on anybody. Everybody assumed this was your lot in life and nothing could be done about it. It doesn't dawn on him, maybe this is an interesting new age where this prospect has opened up before. Doesn't occur to him. Industrial revolution, bad. Just dumb. Sorry, yes, I know. You're thinking, Old Woods here is just a podcaster, and he's Charles Dickens who writes books that are read by school children, and who do you think you are? Well, okay, I hear that, but I just don't care. Sorry, there are a lot of dopes in the history of the world whom we're taught to admire, and he's one of them. And Christmas Carol, I at first was shocked when I read Butler Schaefer's famous essay, taking that thing down and saying that the case against Ebenezer is exceedingly weak. But then the more I thought about it, I thought, you're right. This Bob Cratchit, there's not a soul on earth who thinks he's worth more than Scrooge thinks he is. Not a soul. So there's no one else willing to employ him, but yet Scrooge is the villain? Why is Scrooge the villain? Well, Scrooge employs him. So in addition to employing him, he should also pay for the guy's kid's health? Well, what about all those bums who never hired Cratchit in the first place? Why do they get off scot-free? They pay Cratchit zero. And so they are morally upstanding. Scrooge pays him some number higher than zero, and he's the villain of the story. It's so dumb. It makes me insane.
Yeah, I mean, two things that's tragic about it. First, that Dickens is so good as a writer. He's just brilliant. I mean, if I could write one essay as good as one of his books, that'd be great. And then he takes that talent and he's so wrong. He's so wrong about everything. And that is really the point. One of the things I do is, trying not to be too narrow-minded. Of course, I read Lou Rockwell every day and the Libertarian Institute, but I also go and read Modern Age and Chronicles. You actually pointed me, Tom, towards Chronicles. And I read Jacobin magazine and just go.
Wow.
Yeah, I try.
Good for you.
I try to, just where are they coming from? But lately, they've been on the same thing about how employers are exploiting their workers. And it just always begs the question, well, why don't these people go somewhere else? And if there's nowhere else to go, then isn't this employer saving this person's life, or at least offering them the best situation that anyone in the world is willing to offer them? I mean, how do you get around that? I just can't get past how that doesn't occur to some of these people seem rather intelligent, and it just goes right by them.
I guess the thing that also is at work here is, ever since Walter Block made the point, I can't get it out of my head. Why is it always the employer we're blaming? The employer is the only person on earth who's making their lives better. Why isn't it all the other bums in society who aren't doing anything? Why the employer specifically? If you want to improve the lot of the average worker, and you're not bright enough to understand how capital investment does that, then at least take the opinion that we as a society should help these people. And again, what does it have to do? It has nothing to do with employment. If you want to help the poor, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much there. I mean, does a business exist to employ people at a certain rate, or does it exist for its customers to provide, the best products at the best prices they can? And if it starts raising, wages arbitrarily all over the place, especially Walmart always gets, kicked for this, or they used to before they raised their minimum wage. I haven't heard about them as much anymore. But it's like, what about all the poor people that shop at Walmart? And now their prices are higher. That nobody cares about them. So, it's the old seen and unseen Bastiat, and it's the same story over and over. And so much of the socialist and left wing economic theory is all based on this, just a fundamental misunderstanding of the cause and effect relationships that exist all around them.
Let's skip ahead to the most fun chapter of all, though. Is that okay? Can we do that?
Yeah.
Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I have a feeling it's somewhere around the Glühwein and poetry reading.
Well, let's talk about the new normal Christmas. But before we get into any verse or anything, we should note that this is the second Christmas now that we've had where so-called public health experts are going to try and tell us what we should do. I don't know if you saw about Thanksgiving the other day in the New York Times. You see that sort of advice column about what do we do if we've got two only partially vaccinated kids and we have guests who are all vaccinated and boosted, but the kids are only partially vaccinated. What should we do? And the response was, well, there's still cause for concern. Maybe they could wear masks, eat quickly were the words, eat quickly. So these people are still lording it. They're not lording it over me. They're not lording it over you, but there is a subset of the population that hangs on their every word. That's a weird kind of Christmas.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Tom, for everybody listening that's out of state from New York or doesn't know, I live in upstate New York, or I should say Western New York, right just south of Lake Ontario, just northeast of Lake Erie. And all of New York is not the same. I mean, where I live, it's rural. I mean, during the election, I can't describe it as anything other than Trump fever. Some people still haven't taken their election signs or banners down. 2 doors down from me, which is about a mile down the road since I live on a farm, they had like the Trump family in life-size figurines or something on their porch. I mean, it's just a different place. And it's 2019 here right now. Ever since Cuomo's daughter got married, he lifted the mask mandates right before that. I mean, it's the odd person that you see a mask in. But if you drive 40 minutes southwest of me into the city of Buffalo, it's a whole different world. And you've got people walking around in masks, and the churches there require masks to get in, on our theme here. And it's crazy. And they're not even curious. You've shown a lot of graphs where it's like, well, look at this county, no mask mandate, no lockdown, no anything. And the curve looks just the same as the county next door. Well, here you go 6 blocks and people aren't even curious about what's going on over there. What about those people over there? How come they're not dead yet? So for what it's worth, I think we're going to have a 2019 Christmas where I am, but certainly there's a lot of places that won't.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, we will be having a 2019 Christmas. I'll tell you that. You have in this chapter on the new normal Christmas, you have your version of the night before Christmas, but the night before new normal Christmas. You want to share at least a portion or the whole thing of that with us?
Yeah, I could read a little bit of it. So, of course, this is set up by my soon to be world famous Glühwein recipe, which I got on my trip to the German Christmas market about 15 years ago. But here we go. 'Twas the night before new normal Christmas. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the town not a creature was stirring, all were safely locked down. The masks were all hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Fauci soon would be there. The children were nestled all snuggled in their beds, while visions of booster shots invaded their heads. And Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap lay 6 feet apart for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below. When what did my wondering eyes see arrive but a government agent walking straight up my drive? And I think we should stop there, and you got to download the free book if you want to find out what happens next.
Yeah. All right. How do people get this book, Tom?
Well, they can go to antistatechristmas.com or to my website, tommullentalksfreedom.com. Either one, it'll be easy to supply your email address and download the book for free. You can also buy a paperback copy of it to give out as a stocking stuffer. It's very inexpensive. Unlike everything else this year, it's only $4.99. So
that's not bad. I like the cover. Did you farm that out, or did you know somebody who designs them?
My wife took over that part of it, and I believe went to Fiverr to get somebody to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that for a Fiverr cover, that is really great. That's because you can get believe me, I used to do this, I used to try this. I got a lot of crap Fiverr covers that I had just throw away. But if you throw them away, you don't feel so bad. I only spent $5 on it, but that is great. That is excellent. So tell me you have a new podcast. How long has it been going?
Last Monday was the first episode, and I had Kevin Gutzman on. So we started off with a bang. So I'm doing 3 episodes a week. Episode 4 just dropped today. And then there'll be 5 and 6 this week. And I'm going to work myself up to 5 episodes. Tom, your job isn't as easy as I thought it was. The interviewing part is fun, but the rest of it's a lot of work.
Yeah, there's a lot of unglamorous stuff associated with this that goes on behind the scenes. What's the name of the podcast?
It's called Tom Mullen Talks Freedom.
Okay, I'm linking to all of this stuff. I'm linking to the book, the podcast, your website, everything at tomwoods.com/2015. The thing is, I don't want to talk too much because it's a short little book and I don't want to cover the whole thing. It's a fun read people should have. And as you say, you can stick it in a stocking and it's an attractive looking libertarian book. That's a short list, Tom. So it does actually make a pretty good gift idea. But if you were to throw in one more thing that we didn't get to in this conversation, whatever it is, feel free to unleash it on us.
Well, I think there's some fun in there as well. It's not preachy or anything, and not that libertarians are preachy, but I think people read it. There's the reason that jokes are funny is because there's a lot of truth in them. So you could take some of these, like the one about Old Man Potter, as tongue in cheek, but really, when you sit down and think of it in the quiet of your night, you'll say, it's kind of true. And there's a few more positive things about Christmas specials you might want to watch, like Little Drummer Boy and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. There's some thoughts about those too, and more positive.
All right, very good. So tomwoods.com/2015 is really where all the links can be found. The book is An Anti-State Christmas by Tom Mullen. Got a brand new podcast that you can check out, again, among the links on the show notes page. So, Tom, I think probably this will be the last time we talk before Christmas, so I'll say in advance, Merry Christmas, and best of luck with everything you're doing.
Same to you, Tom. Thanks very much.
Okay, everybody, that's another week of Tom Woods Show episodes. Remember, it's Black Friday today, so check out the best deal we have during the year on the Liberty Classroom Master Membership. Remember, libertyclassroom.com is my website that's been around for nearly 10 years now, that teaches you the history and economics they didn't teach you in school. We all suffered from educational malpractice. Here's your remedy while you're driving around. You get the knowledge they kept from you. You get the knowledge you need to smash people in debates. And it's just very satisfying because it also teaches you how the world works and what really happened in history. All this wonderful stuff that people need to know. So libertyclassroom.com. Check out the Master Lifetime Membership because it's at the best deal we have all year. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'll see you next week.
Become a smarter libertarian in just 30 minutes a day. Visit tomwoods.com to subscribe to the show for free, and we'll see you next time.
Like the sound of The Tom Woods Show? My audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.